You keep waiting for someone to fill the silence in your life. A friend to call, a message to land, a room to stop feeling empty. And every time it stays quiet, something in you panics. You call it loneliness, but it's not loneliness, it's withdrawal. You're addicted to noise, to validation, to being seen. And nobody ever taught you how to sit in a room with just yourself and not flinch. That's not a flaw. That's a skill you were never given. And what I'm about to tell you will change the way you see every quiet moment for the rest of your life. But before I tell you that, I need you to understand what's actually happening inside you right now. Be honest with yourself for a moment. When was the last time you sat in silence? No phone, no music, no distraction. And didn't feel the urge to escape it within 90 seconds. Most people can't do it. They reach for their phone the second boredom shows up. Not because they're bored, but because they're afraid of what they'll hear if the noise stops. You feel this because somewhere along the way, being alone got rebranded as a punishment. Kids get sent to their room, alone, as discipline. Adults get left alone. When relationships end, we associate solitude with rejection so deeply that we forget it was never supposed to mean that. So you fill every gap. You scroll to avoid the silence at 11 p.m. You text someone, anyone, the moment a thought gets uncomfortable. You keep the TV on just to have a voice in the room that isn't yours. And here's the cost nobody tells you about. Every time you drown out the quiet, you drown out the only voice that actually knows what you want. Your own. This shows up in ways you don't even connect to the real cause. You take jobs you hate because deciding what you actually want requires sitting with the question long enough to hear the answer. And you never give yourself that long. You stay in relationships that drain you because the idea of an empty apartment feels more threatening than the idea of a life that isn't yours. You make decisions based on who's watching instead of what's true because you've spent so little time alone with yourself that you don't actually know what's true for you anymore. This is the cost of never being alone. Not sadness, not loneliness. Disconnection from the one person who's supposed to know you best, you. And that disconnection is quietly running your entire life. Here's what most people never realize. Solitude and loneliness are not the same thing, and confusing them is the single most expensive mistake you can make with your one life. Loneliness is the pain of disconnection. Solitude is the power of being fully connected to yourself. Loneliness happens to you. Solitude is something you choose. And the wild part is, they can look identical from the outside. Same empty room, same quiet evening, same person sitting there without another human in sight. But on the inside, they are opposite experiences. One is starvation, the other is nourishment. Here's why this distinction matters so much. Every person you've ever admired for their clarity, their confidence, their sense of direction, they didn't get that from a crowd. They got it from time alone, doing the uncomfortable work of listening to themselves until the noise of everyone else's opinions finally went quiet. Writers don't find their voice in a room full of people talking. Athletes don't build mental toughness during the applause. They build it in empty gyms at 5 a.m. when no one's watching, and quitting would be easy. Leaders don't develop conviction by constantly checking what the group thinks. They develop it by spending enough time alone with a decision that they no longer need permission to trust it. Solitude is where identity gets built because it's the only place validation isn't available. When no one's around to approve of you, you're forced to find out what you actually believe, want, and value, stripped of performance. And that's terrifying the first few times because the silence doesn't just show you peace. It shows you everything you've been avoiding, the unprocessed grief, the decision you've been postponing, the truth about a relationship you already know isn't working, the dream you buried under practical choices. Solitude doesn't create those things. It just stops letting you hide from them. That's why most people run from it. Not because being alone is hard, because being honest is hard. And alone is where honesty finally catches up to you. But here's the part that changes everything. On the other side of that discomfort is a version of you that doesn't need a room full of people to feel like you exist. A version of you that can walk into any situation and not need it to go a certain way to feel okay. Because your sense of self isn't rented from other people's reactions anymore. It's own. That ownership is the entire game. So how do you actually build this? Not the idea of it, the practice. First, you have to schedule solitude like it's an appointment. Because if you wait until it happens naturally, it never will. Your days are already engineered against it. notifications, group chats, background noise, autoplay. Every system around you is built to prevent an empty moment from existing, so you take it back on purpose. 30 minutes, no phone, no input, just you and whatever shows up in your head. It will feel unbearable at first. That discomfort is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're finally doing it. Second, you stop treating your own company as a waiting room for other people to show up. Most people are only alone in the gaps between social plans. They treat solitude as the boring hallway between the rooms that actually matter. Flip that. Treat the time with yourself as the main event, and the socializing as the bonus. When solitude is the foundation and connection is the addition. You stop being desperate for people to fill a hole, and you start choosing people because you actually want them there. That shift changes every relationship you'll ever have. Third, use the silence to ask the questions you've been avoiding. What am I actually doing with my life versus what am I just going along with? What have I been afraid to admit to myself? Who am I when there's no one left to impress? These questions don't answer themselves in a group chat. They only answer themselves in the quiet, when there's nowhere left to look but inward. Fourth, learn to enjoy your own presence the way you want a partner to enjoy theirs. Cook the me you actually want, not the one that photographs well. Take the walk without narrating it to anyone. Sit with a thought until it finishes instead of cutting it off with a notification. This is how you build a relationship with yourself. The same slow, repeated attention you'd give someone you were trying to fall for, because you are trying to fall for someone, yourself. And fifth, this is the one people skip. Let yourself be bad at it for a while. The first weeks of real solitude are often uncomfortable, restless, even a little sad because you're finally hearing thoughts you've been outrunning for years. That's not failure, that's detox. Stay in the room anyway. The discomfort has a shelf life. Peace does not. Picture this for a second. A year from now, you as someone who no longer needs the room to be full to feel okay in it. You walk into a party and you're relaxed, not performing, because you already spent time with the person you're bringing into that room, yourself, and you actually like them. You make a decision about your career, your relationship, your future, and it's yours, not your friend groups, not your family's expectations, not the version of you that just wants everyone to approve, yours. Now picture the other version. A year from now, still filling every silence, still checking your phone the second a feeling gets uncomfortable, still making choices based on who's watching instead of what you actually want. Because you never gave yourself the one thing every strong, grounded, self-assured person had to go through first. Time alone with the truth, the pain of that discomfort, sitting with silence, facing your own thoughts, weighs almost nothing compared to the weight of a life built entirely on other people's approval. One is temporary. The other follows you into every room for the rest of your life. This is your moment to choose which one you carry. You're not broken because silence makes you uncomfortable. You're just untrained. And training starts the next time the room goes quiet and you don't reach for your phone. You stay, you breathe. You let the discomfort pass through you instead of running from it. And on the other side of that discomfort is the steadiest, clearest, most unshakable version of you that has ever existed. You don't need the noise. You never did. You were just never given the silence long enough to find that out. So give it to yourself. Starting today, sit in the quiet. Meet yourself. You might be surprised who's actually been waiting there. If this hits something in you, don't just scroll past it and forget it by tomorrow. Hit subscribe to Motiverse right now, because this is exactly the kind of truth we bring you every single day. The things nobody else will say to you straight, delivered without the fluff. Turn on notifications so the next video finds you the moment it drops, because the next truth you need to hear might be one video away. This channel isn't here to entertain you for 5 minutes. It's here to change how you see your entire life. One video, one truth, one uncomfortable moment at a time. So subscribe, stay, and come back tomorrow, because the version of you that has it all figured out isn't waiting somewhere out there. He's being built right here, one video at a time. And he needs you to show up for the next one.